None of her children, except the ones who lived in Manchester, could see her. She never saw her sons who were in America. She never saw her son who was in Sweden. She never saw her brothers and siblings together again. A woman who was like a queen, both in money and living standard, lost everything just by what Idi Amin did.
Hello and namaste. This is Expulsion at 50, an oral history project created to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the expulsion of Asians from Uganda. My name is Dola Vasani. In this episode, Ashifa Dhillon shares some heart-wrenching experiences of what happened to her family following the announcement by President Idi Amin back in 1972. It is difficult to fully reconcile the impact it had on people's lives. And sadly, we see history repeating itself over and over and over again.
My father was an orphan. He came to Uganda late, I think, 20s, I think 24 or something like that, or 26. He was educated. His uncle, his chacha brought him over to Uganda. My mother was born in Jinja in 1912. I was born in Masaka. My dad lived in Masaka. My dad went there, I think, in 1929 or 30. One of 13. One died when I was 2 years old. I am 74 now. I've been in a family where I wasn't deprived of anything. My parents were quite wealthy when I was growing up. I had a lot of love from my brothers and my sisters, and I was one of those who was very spoiled. I never learned any cooking until I came to England. Isn't that amazing? He opened up cycle shops. My dad's chachaji, we called him grandfather and called him Babaji. Babaji was already in cycle business. So my dad opened up cycle shop and he was very, very successful, very successful.
Okay, so you were born in Masaka, and I wonder if you can share with me a little bit about your childhood and what that was like.
Honestly, I had a life that maybe princesses could live. That's the kind of life I had, because being the ninth in the family and 6 sisters older than me, you can imagine everybody was spoiling me. We used to go to school, Aga Khan school. In the primary school, I studied there. And we had a driver called Manwari who used to drive us to school and bring us back. My mother at 10 o'clock used to send 10:30. She used to send us breakfast on a tray. And our driver that's a very good memory I have. And my older sister, Rofi, was studying there as well. And we used to sit under a tree and have our breakfast. For lunch, we used to go home. The driver used to drive us home. So it was quite nice, and we had a very good relationship with our driver. That's why I've never forgotten his name, Manwari. He was like very protective, very defensive, treated us like his children. And my father and mother actually taught us to respect him. He was our guardian angel during that time. We lived in a house of 10 rooms, and we had 5 upstairs, 5 downstairs. In Masaka, it was 13 Kampala Road, Masaka. My uncle, my mom's brother, my dad treated him like his younger brother, like his son. They lived with us as well. So we lived together as a big, happy family. We had mango tree, we had guava tree and an orange tree, and we used to sit on the tree and enjoy the fruits. So I know climbing the trees very well. It was quite nice. And the other thing which has always stuck in my mind, um, downstairs, we had a workshop where they used to build cycles up, and we used to sit with the workers and do that. At the end of the garden, we had 3 toilets. And obviously, there was no flush toilets there at that time. And we used to come from upstairs to go to the toilets. We were allowed to play with everyone. I remember playing, we used to call them the gully, the behind the house. There was that little road, muddy road, and all of us used to play together. We had Gujaratis, Punjabis, Ismailis. We all used to play together, and honestly, it was fun because that is where I picked up my language skills. We had that independence, and we had a mommy cinema not very far from our house. And my dad used to tell them, let my children in, and we were allowed in. We never paid anything. I think he must have been collecting the money from my dad.
Many of the interviewees, it's a very common shared experience of very strong community. So, celebrating all the festivals, living next to people, of all faiths. And there was a sort of a mutual respect for
Yes.
those
Yes.
differences and the diversity. And I wonder for you, Ashi, like what 1972 looked like for you.
You don't have to worry. You are all Wananchi. You are Ugandan citizens, and you are 3 generations born in this country. That's what my dad said. He said, we have spent nearly 90 years in this country. Nobody's going to throw us out. We are here. My dad was employing a lot of people to build the cycles up. And my dad also in the 30s had about 29 little shops in the villages, and I thought he had a brilliant idea of now like McDonald's. So I mean, he was a very clever man. He was a very, very clever man.
So there you are. You're in your early 20s. You've had exposure to being in another country, being a little bit maybe independent. You come back to Uganda, you start working, and then this thing happens. And what sort of passports did you have then?
I had a Uganda passport. We were automatic citizens of Uganda. We couldn't have got British passport at all.
So you all had Ugandan passports?
We all had, except my dad had a Pakistani passport. My mom had, they then got the passport later on in the late 60s. My mother had a British passport. So she had a British passport, and all my brothers and all 12 of us, Ugandan passports.
Okay, so that's why you are the Wananchis.
Yes, that's why we were Wananchis, yes.
And you all had Ugandan passports. Your father had a Pakistani passport. Your mother had a British passport.
Yes.
So what happened during those 90 days?
The first month was my dad didn't believe that we would be chucked out because we are Uganda citizens. We could have stayed, but I think it was the fear. And then that happened in August the 5th, I think. And then September, when things started looting and things started happening, and the fear that the girls will be taken away and all that, my brothers decided, because it was a family business. We had a shop in Barara, we had a shop in Kampala, we had a shop in Masaka. And my brothers decided that my dad should take all the grandchildren and go to Pakistan, because he had a Pakistani passport, because he couldn't come to Britain in the first instance. So he took all my nieces and my nephews, the younger ones, and he went to Pakistan, and followed by all my married sisters. All my sisters were married. My youngest brother was doing his A level. He and I were left there with my mom and with my auntie who lived with us.
Very interesting as to how decisions are made. So because your father had a Pakistani passport, he wasn't able to come to the UK. So he decided to take your nieces and nephews and some of your sisters, and they all went to Pakistan.
Yeah, with an intention of my father coming back. You know, he thought this will all settle in and we'll go back. And they left with one suitcase, their clothes, nothing else, nothing, absolutely nothing else. And of course, return tickets, which were never used. All I remember is my mom crying her eyes out. She had never been away from my father since she got married in 1927.
And so you've got your mom and your brothers and some other people and yourself, and then you are feeling like you now have to leave the country, but you have Ugandan passport. So what happens then?
I had a friend who was called Satwant Dhillon. He was a Sikh and I'm a Muslim. On 20th September, we got registered marriage. He went to his house, I went to my house, and I told my mom that we will be leaving. So we are going to book our tickets, and we bought the tickets Alitalia because my husband was a British citizen. So he was my passport to England. I told my mother was a little bit upset because he was a Sikh and I'm a Muslim, and she was worried about what people will say and all that. But anyway, she didn't say nothing to me. But when I was leaving the house, this changed my world. When I was leaving the house, my mother was standing. She was standing outside the house. We had two pillars, and she was looking at me and waving to me and crying. And I never saw my mother again well enough, because in October, when she left Uganda with my youngest brother, she went via Addis Ababa and all those places, Germany, and landed in London. My brother-in-law came to pick her up. After about some time, 4 weeks later, I went to Manchester to see my mom. And my mom looked very distant, very, very distant. She recognized me. And I said to her, Ammi, what's happened to you? Why are you like this? I said, we'll have a better life here. And she goes, I forgot my house on the plane. I forgot my family on the plane. She got a shock. She developed on the plane, she developed memory loss and then hardening of the arteries. And a woman who had 11 children and loads of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, she didn't know where they were. She had no idea where they were. None of her children, except the ones who lived in Manchester, could see her. She never saw her sons who were in America. She never saw her son who was in Sweden. She never saw her brothers and siblings together again. A woman who was like a queen, both in money and living standard, lost everything just by what Idi Amin did. Money is never everything in life. That is what it has taught me.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Ashifa. It's just devastating. Ashifa, what happened to your dad then?
My father joined her because we then sponsored my father to come here. After 3 years, he joined her, but then my mom was becoming very ill and he became her carer. He looked after her together with my three sisters who lived in Manchester. Two sisters lived in Chicago. Two brothers lived in Canada. One brother who, with his two little girls, hitchhiked from Pakistan through Afghanistan, Turkey, and all these countries, actually hitchhiked with two girls and landed in a camp in Austria. 2 years later, he got a stay in Sweden. And she died in 79, 14th February 79, of hardening of the arteries, which came too soon to her at the age of 66. Father never saw half the children together again. We were never a family again together. Not even at funerals, not even at weddings. There was always some missing somewhere in the other, or because they couldn't afford. A lost man. He was a lost man. He was embarrassed to take Social Security money. He was embarrassed to eat the food with the Social Security money because as a child he had seen poverty and he didn't want to be in that stage again.
Yeah, it's the dignity that's taken away, isn't it?
1st December 72, I got a job with Northwest Securities. My shorthand was 120 words per minute. So I started and I've never stopped.
Ashifa settled in Hounslow, West London, and over the years has had many different jobs. She has also been very active in the community, working on issues of domestic violence, refugee resettlement, among others. And I wonder for you, particularly once you were settled, you had children, things were a little bit, moving in flow. What happened to Uganda in your life?
My brother went in 80s to Uganda. He went from Sweden. He wanted to he said he will try to see if he can get our properties back. My brother went looking for, I told you there were two guys, Ugandan guys, who used to stay with us and work with in our shop, Yusufu and Manwari. He went looking for them. He found Yusufu. Somebody told him he's very old, he's living in this place. So he went to that hut. They took him to his house, not hut. My mother used to have a beautiful bed, chrome bed in her bedroom. All siblings were conceived on that. I think we all slept on that bed. 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. When we were young, we used to jump on it. So my brother went there and he saw that bed in his house. That guy had covered the bed with the bedsheet, covered it, looked after it. So my brother said to him, he said, Yusufu, why you got this bed here? He said, this is for Mama. I have saved this bed for Mama because Mama had the bed all her life. And Mama used to keep it very clean. Mama used to crochet and put the things on there. And he actually remembered those things and he remembered our names. And my brother told us that he burst into tears. And he said, take it back with you, give it to Mama. And my brother said, when he said, give it to Mama, my brother said, I burst into tears. He said, Mama is gone. Mama died a terrible death. Mama never forgot Masaka and for you guys.
The thing about these stories is that in all of the sorrow and hurt and anguish and displacement, there are these beautiful gems of, like the person that you speak about who was looking after the bed. And
Yeah,
that is a demonstration of the humanity. And we think that, we were the only ones who suffered, but they
no.
also suffered.
When my sister went about 5, 6 years ago, she took her children. She said she went into my mother's house and all her children could see her were her tears. She got so emotional standing there. Apparently, that house of 10 rooms, big rooms, has been made into little shops.
As you know, the podcast I'm doing is to commemorate the 50-year anniversary, which will be next year. And
Yeah.
I wonder, for you, why do you think it's important that we tell these stories?
I think it's very important that we tell the stories because, number one, the world is not stable in itself, right? All over the world, refugees are everywhere. I don't think we should forget that people who suffered or people who came and minted money and have no heart to support others, we shouldn't be forgetting the base of all this. And also educating the younger children to be humans, to be able to understand, not be harsh with each other. Name it all. We have gone through all these things over and over and over again.
It's all amazing, amazing story of tenacity and resilience. And that's something that many, many of us have demonstrated,
Yes, yes.
that will to overcome adversity. Thank you for listening to Ashifa's story. Do subscribe to this channel for more compelling stories of the expulsion. Till next time, keep well and safe.